So Europe has a big energy problem. It's not a Russian problem. The decoupling has already happened. The Eurozone has a new dilemma and it's coming from the United States. Since the start of the Ukraine conflict, the EU has done everything they could to cut away Russian oil and gas. They threw energy sanctions on Russian supply and price caps to hurt Putin's oil revenues. But without energy from Siberia, Europe's economy has been collapsing with the bloc on the brink of a recession. As the EU decoupled from Russian gas, their manufacturing PMI started to collapse. Europe went from an industrial powerhouse with positive growth to contraction within a couple of months. And this stagnation has continued to drag on well into 2024, with services also contracting together with their industries. As a result, GDP growth has taken a continuous hit month after month, with zero growth in Q4 last year. Instead of learning their lessons or firing up the nuclear power plants, Europe has committed another grave mistake. They have traded Russian energy for a new slave master, the United States. Back in 2021, US LNG accounted for only 5% of Europe's gas imports. The majority, nearly 50%, came from Russian gas. Fast forward 2 years later, the tables have flipped. Russian gas is only 14% of imports, while US gas is now 20% of the market. That's a 400% increase in US exports to Europe. So someone is getting rich at the expense of Russia and the EU. Thanks to the EU decoupling from Russia, US energy companies are raking it in. America is now the world's biggest exporter of LNG. According to the EIA, the US exports over 20 billion cubic feet of LNG every single day. And if we zoom into the destinations, it's easy to see where the gas is really flowing to. Because Europe desperately needs gas, American LNG cargoes have been diverted there to earn more money. Global volumes have dropped while LNG to Europe has almost tripled in 2 years. Russia's loss is America's gain. The UK, France, and Netherlands, they are especially beholden to US LNG supply. Because Russian pipeline gas flows almost exclusively to China now, Europe has to pay through the nose for US imports. And this is what happens when you mix politics with economics. Unfortunately, they haven't learned their lesson. While America is a G7 ally, business is still business. US LNG isn't being sold at a discount. Emmanuel Macron, the French president, has also complained about this, and his statement sums it up perfectly. Among the countries that support Ukraine, there are two categories being created in the gas market: those who are paying dearly and those who are selling at very high prices. The US is a producer of cheap gas that they are selling us at a high price. I don't think that's very friendly. Macron just reviewed the game and it's all about making more money from a desperate customer, and the customer is Europe. By isolating itself away from their neighbor and hopping onto the sanctions bandwagon, making a U-turn now is impossible. But higher prices is just one factor. The real risk is tying your entire economy, the fate of industrial Europe, to US policy. And we all know that US policy can be a really fickle beast. It can be sunny one day and a thunderstorm the exact next day. From Bloomberg, gas addicted Europe trades one energy risk for another. Rather than replace Russian gas with renewables, the continent has turned to American natural gas. And here's the big problem: this reliance on US LNG will only continue to grow. The Middle East is in chaos today and it's getting worse every single day. And do you think the sanctions on Russia will ever reverse? Europe's energy security has simply switched from one superpower to another, and the magnitude of dependence on US LNG is simply staggering. Just 5 years back, America exported only 1 million tons to Europe, but today exports have grown 50 times to 50 million tons a year. In contrast, LNG from Russia, Qatar, and other suppliers have dropped over the last 24 months. Percentage-wise, gas from America is almost 50% of what Europe is bringing in, and this addiction is only going to grow. According to BGC, Europe is trapped. By 2032, EU imports of US energy are expected to double, and it will cost over $110 billion. Europe's loss is America's gain. But the real threat here is America halting gas exports to Europe. Yes, just like how Russia can turn off the tap, the US can also stop selling LNG to the Eurozone. It's not impossible. From Reuters, Biden pauses LNG export approvals after pressure from climate activists. They have stopped the approval of new licenses to export LNG, and the reason is a really silly one. The Biden administration wants to study the effects of climate change and global warming. Listen to that. They have surrendered to woke culture and it's crazy. and this underscores the extreme risk Europe has placed themselves in. EU companies looking to secure more supply from the US are now left out in the cold, literally. They can't get any new export permits to import American gas. Many projects are now frozen, such as the CP2 LNG, which was planned to export natural gas to Germany. It was supposed to be a 20-year LNG supply agreement, but that is now left up in the air. This is how dangerous it can be to rely on just one big supplier. And it's not just US energy policy Europe is afraid of. US foreign policy is another big dilemma for the Eurozone. You have no idea whether a supplier of your energy might be America's next target. A great example is the US sanctioning Russia's Arctic LNG 2 project. Now, this project was supposed to allow countries like France to offtake more Russian LNG to diversify their energy supply. But because of US sanctions, France's investments and import agreements have gone up in flames, and that leaves them scrambling for more energy from the US or Qatar. And what does that do? It pushes up the selling price of US LNG headed to Europe. But the horror story is only going to get worse. The Eurozone wants to decouple completely from Russian oil and gas by 2027. And that's just 3 years from now, and time flies extremely fast. And that will mean cutting away whatever dependence they have left on Russian LNG, which is around 9 to 10% of their current imports. But Europe is forgetting about the laws of supply and demand. Cutting away Russian LNG sounds good, but where are you going to source for the missing 10% of supply? It doesn't magically appear. You have to get it from either the Middle East or the United States. There's also a demand problem as well. Europe isn't the only continent in the world looking to buy LNG. You have two mega giants, China and India, plus the rest of Asia to compete with. Over the next 15 years, Asia will be dominating the demand for LNG. Demand will grow from 270 million tons a year to over 500 million, almost double the amount. Europe's demand, however, only rises by 10 million tons. That is nothing compared to Asia. Countries like India and China have no trouble buying Russian LNG. Europe, on the other hand, will have to buy from American companies who will jack prices up to a desperate continent. And this is the cost of mixing politics with economics. By refusing to buy Russian gas, Europe's energy bill is only going to escalate upwards over the years, and this will push heavy manufacturing economies like Germany closer and closer towards a recession. Germany's Q4 GDP came in at minus 0.3%, and now we have a forecast that we all expect. The IFO Institute is predicting Germany's GDP to decline again by 0.2% in the first quarter of this year, 2024, and this means by March, Germany would be in an official recession. And this goes against Olaf Scholz's bold claim that Germany is strong and that the recession would never come. The need for cheap energy cannot be overstated, guys. Credit Suisse calculated how leveraged the German economy was on Russian gas. $30 billion of Russian supply controlled almost $2 trillion worth of German manufacturing output. Replacing such leverage that allowed Germany to become an industrial giant won't be possible. There will always be supply available, that's not the problem. The big problem will be the price Europe has to pay for this supply. Energy is a critical input in manufacturing. When that goes up, your cost of production goes up as well, which eventually gets passed down to your customers. And this makes products more expensive and exports from Europe less competitive. And this is where we need to talk about a geographical premium, or what I like to call stupidity premium. It's the premium Europe has to pay for decoupling from cheap energy just next door. They had it piped through Nord Stream before, but now that option is gone. The only supply left is either across the Atlantic Ocean or through the Indian Ocean. So now they have to ship LNG, which costs more. It's a supply which is further away at a time when the Red Sea is on fire. Do you see the grand mess they are in? And whether it's supply from the US or Qatar, the journey will take weeks more than pipeline gas from Russia. When Europe made the switch to US LNG, they had to rush for LNG ships, and because of that, freight rates flew to the moon. It went from an average of 50 grand a day to almost $400,000 at the peak. It takes anywhere from 10 to 30 days to transport LNG from the US to Europe, so you'll be paying at least $4 to $12 million in shipping costs just to get the fuel. With the Red Sea crisis going on, LNG prices will continue to stay higher for Europe. There's a shortage of tankers once again. While the Eurozone pays more, someone else in the world is paying less, and that someone is China. Just like Europe, China's next door to Russia, so the majority of gas comes through their pipelines as well. Thanks to sanctions, Russia is also selling natural gas at a cheaper price. Beijing will be buying gas at almost a 50% discount versus European buyers. $270 versus $480. And that's a big reason why China's industries are still making money. Industrial profits grew by 16.8% in December and over 29% in November last year. While China has many economic problems, manufacturing is not one of them thanks to cheap Russian gas. Energy supply is one of the most critical pillars of any economy. You want to make sure it's diversified and you're not getting it from one single source. That's very important. Sure, China and Russia are friendly today, but no one can guarantee this will last forever, right? For the next 50 or even 100 years, anything can happen. Allies today can be enemies tomorrow. It's simply a smart move to diversify your energy supply. China's biggest LNG supplier in the world isn't Russia, it's actually Australia. Last year alone, China imported 22 million tons from the country. Their supply chains are diversified without total energy dependence on Russia. If we pull up the charts, we can immediately see China's supply strategy. The top 5 suppliers are Australia, Malaysia, Qatar, Indonesia, and New Guinea. Russia is only in 6th place, and obviously supply from the US is near the bottom. Having diversification around the world allows you to weather any disaster. So if Australia cuts away LNG, China can always ramp up supply from Russia. And that's why countries like India and China, they still trade with Moscow today. They still buy Russian oil and gas, not just for cheaper fuel, but to also leave their options open. The Eurozone, on the other hand, made the terrible mistake of constraining their options, and that leaves them at the mercy of US foreign policy. You better do what we want because we supply all your energy needs. The French finance minister calls this LNG dependence American economic domination and a weakening of Europe. He wants a more balanced economic partnership with the US, but that is impossible today. A large part of European wealth and industry is being hollowed out with the proceeds flowing towards the US. America can influence Europe to a large extent to do almost anything today. This devastation is felt acutely in the chemical sector. According to Accenture, European chemical industry is paying 3 to 4 times more for gas compared to US domestic buyers. That is a very big premium. To reduce production costs, energies have to relocate closer to the energy source. And this means unrooting away from countries like Germany and building plants all the way in the US. US manufacturing is definitely making a comeback, but it is at the expense of Europe. And at this point, there is no U-turn left. Europe's energy squeeze will continue and their industries will continue to suffer. Going forward into the future, America's LNG capacity expansion will still lead the world. Even with the LNG pause from Joe Biden, US export capacity will increase by 100 billion cubic meters by 2028. Because Europe has their hands tied, they have no choice but to keep importing gas from the US for decades to come. And this might be horrible for the Eurozone, but hey, it's great business for America. But let me know what you think in the comments below. Is Europe really trapped? And is there a U-turn from this mess? Is that even possible? Let me know in the comments below. Stay safe, be sure to smash the like button and subscribe as we navigate through these crazy times.